And to have somebody in your community that knows that God is bigger than your circumstances, the things that have happened to you in life, that God is bigger than those, that is a huge, a great asset to have in a community, and a great, leader to have, just to invest in the community. Well, welcome back to the FBC Ropes Family Podcast. Here we go. We're on episode number 5, and today we're going to be talking about community, why it's important, and what we view community as. So, Courtney, what is the definition of community?
I love reading the dictionary definition. So it is a feeling of fellowship with others as a result of sharing common attitudes, interests, and goals. Do you agree with that?
Yeah. I mean, we could agree.
Pretty much
with
it.
that. Yeah, that's a community. Like, you could look at community a lot of different ways. Like, community could be almost like a family, like a little extended family, or it could look at as like a neighborhood, a church, a city, or even like a country. Like, community can envelop all of those definitions. But I think that when we talk about community in this setting, we're obviously talking about our church community. What do you think? What makes community important?
Well, I have a bunch of reasons I think it's important, but I also asked some different women in my life to tell me why they thought it was important. So I'm going to read you a couple of those. These are women ages 25 through 40. They're a little bit younger than that, but one of them said, church community is vital in my walk with God, both as accountability and support. I think that is crazy because, right, you have to have accountability. Nobody wants to be held accountable. But if we're not, we
can just kind of go off and be by ourselves.
Yeah, do what we want, and no one's asking us anything.
I think that brings up a good point. We always joke that one of us is going to bring the theological parts to the podcast.
It's not me usually.
And today it's going to be me. So, we're created in God's image. Okay. And so I want you to envision this. So God is Father, Son, and the Holy Spirit. So that's three. That's a Trinity, right? So God is community. And so us being created in his image means we're created for community.
That's deep. I like it.
I mean, and humans, we're really good at messing things up. Like, we're created to worship, and so we definitely worship, but sometimes we worship the wrong things. We're created to follow or to be discipled, to be something, and we definitely do that. But sometimes we are discipled by the wrong things.
Yes.
And I think the same thing with community. Like, we're great at placing ourselves in communities, being around people that have like-minded opinions or values, but sometimes those communities can be harmful for us. And that's the same thing. Like, if nobody's holding us accountable to the standards of our community, then it's tough. It's tough to kind of get through life, especially as a believer. Having that accountability helps us to be better in our faith.
I think being able to walk through life with the highs and lows and having people around you that are faithful and that can give you advice is really important. Just like you're saying, we're going to be led somewhere. If we're being mentored by people who want to go to heaven and want to do the right things, then it's just a much better life for us. Especially as young people, not that we're that young, but we're younger. And the older people, especially in our church, we have a lot of ages. Yeah. We have a very, very old to, we're going to have new babies. No offense. Somebody's old. I'm sorry. I'm like middle-aged or something. I don't know. But they can give us so much advice, and we can even give advice, which is weird, to the younger generations. Yeah. So that's why I think our church is so special. And being a small church, is we are a close community. It's pretty cool.
Everybody knows everybody.
Yeah, true.
That's how it goes. Everybody calls you friend.
I won't sing.
You didn't know you were going to get singing on this podcast. So what makes a good community?
The willingness to hold people accountable, the ability to spend time together. We've talked about women's ministry, and at Christmas we get together, we eat, we play games, and then we also build baskets for the shut-ins and other people in our church. Well, that right there, we're a community that's serving other people in our church. So it's just all the service and everything mixed together.
Yeah, I think communities endure life together. Like they provide, community. You have relationship with people.
Yeah.
You provide accountability, and you receive accountability in a good community. The community helps pick up the slack for when you're not prepared for a certain situation, or even like passing down wisdom from other generations down. Communities help with that to help build that up. And I think you're going to make this point later, and I don't want to steal your point, but it takes a village, right?
Yep.
So what do you mean by when it takes a village?
Well, I used to think that was kind of like a cop-out for parents before I had kids. Like, oh, it takes a village. You're going to help me with my kids. But really, it does. It's someone to back you up when you're needing the extra encouragement or support, or you're at this age, or your kids are at this age that you're like, how am I going to make it through this? And some mom steps in and goes, yes, my kids are 25. We've already gone through this. It's going to be okay. It takes people to step in where you're lacking, kind of, or just to give you support. Yeah. I think it's very important for all of those reasons.
There's a couple books. I recommended one to some of the dads of some of the younger students in the youth ministry. It's called Intentional Father. I'm going to recommend that book. If you haven't read it and you have a teenage son, pick it up and read it. It's got some really insightful stuff. And then there's another book called Take Back Your Family by Jeff Bethke. Both of these books have real great practical ways the community has shaped the lives of their kids or the lives of teenagers. The one point in Take Back Your Family is Jeff Bethke, he looks back at kind of like more ancient families and kind of moves forward into the future with them. Back in the day, families used to be bigger. They used to actually look like a community, like you'd have husband, wife, kids, aunts, uncles, grandparents, a bunch of all these people within the household to help raise kids. And I think that's the role that the church can play now, because nowadays in our culture, we're all in our cookie cutter 5-6 people house, like 5-6 people to a house. And then where is that outside influence? Where's that, sometimes parents, we don't know everything. I don't know how to teach my kids how to weld or how to do other random things, but there are people in my community that could teach. Welding was kind of a crazy example, but how to do these things, how to pick up the slack that I can't do. That are very useful skills. And it doesn't have to just be like that. It could be faith exercises, or it could be other things that I'm not very good at teaching my kids, but somebody else in this community might be. Like an example of that is Sunday school teachers, people investing in our kids.
Right.
That's a good example of community.
My friend Emma said, kids are just trying to figure things out. They're just like us. We've only done this, thing once, this thing of life. So she said, when they're trying to figure things out and you're with this group of believers, that's their foundation for their faith. Because if they're, wondering about something and they can ask someone in the church and they get a biblical answer instead of asking the world who's going to give them do what you want, YOLO kind of thing. Yeah. So
do what makes you feel good.
Yeah. It'll make you happy. It's fine.
Yeah.
But in church, they'll be like, not so much. So my mom also said that the older generations have a lot of wisdom, like you said, but they've also been through stuff that, hopefully we'll never go through, but we might. And they can give us that guidance through stuff. And I totally agree with that because, anything and everything has happened to people in this church. And so it's nice to have other people like that.
Yeah, that aren't caught off guard by the crazy things that happen to us.
Right.
I think that, I don't know if they would mind me sharing this, but my Allison's uncle, he recently passed away, and he had a you could say a rough life. I don't want to get too much into it, but you could definitely look at his life and compare it to the life of Job, and he responded a lot like Job. You know, he never wavered in his faith. You know, of course he was mad, he was angry, but he never wavered. You know, like he knew that God was bigger than his circumstances. And to have somebody in your community that knows that God is bigger than your circumstances, the things that have happened to you in life, that God is bigger than those, that is a huge, a great asset to have in a community, and a great, leader to have, just to invest in the community. Do you have anybody else on your list that kind of shared?
Kathy said what community is to her is support, prayers, and knowing you're part of God's team, which is pretty cool. Knowing you have that backing.
Yeah.
And then
that's another point that, sorry, I don't want to.
Oh, did I steal your point?
No, that's another point that Jeff Bethke makes. Like he equates the family like a team, and community like a team. Everybody's got their own job to do. And if everybody's doing their job, everybody's taken care of. And
you have each other's backs.
Yeah.
If one person makes a mistake, you don't, disown them. You go and help them, pick them up, get them back to playing, and keep going.
Here's a good discussion question that you guys can talk to with as a family. And if you can come up with one, if you have one, you can. If you don't have one, that's not a big deal. But here's a good one. I think that it's a lot like the one in prayer. Like, what would it be like if you were just kind of isolated? What would that feel like for a week? Like if we kind of had this example when in 2020 in COVID, like where we had to be off. We had to isolate ourselves for 10 days or 14 days or whatever. We kind of had that feeling. And so how would that make you feel if you were isolated away from community?
Well, even people who aren't really super social still need relationships and still need that bond. So that's an interesting question. I want to ask my kids that question.
All right. Well, that's all we got for today's podcast. We're going to be posting Thursdays, and I think you can subscribe or follow us. It kind of helps you get the notification when we post. So we thank you guys for listening. We love you guys. We'll talk to you later.